And welcome to the Diablo podcast, your home for Diablo tryhards, diehards, casual and hardcore, and maybe after 2 days ago, returning Diablo 4 players. I am your host, Xanth, and I'm joined today by my lovely co-host, Nimeball,
Why?
the very notable Nerdwords,
Hello.
and we are, of course, brought to you by PureDiablo.com, your home for an expansive Diablo wiki, an ever-growing community, and of course, this podcast, Trinidad and Tobago's #1 gaming podcast. Okay, I hit all of it yet again. I think I'm getting good at this. It only took over a year, but I can kind of get it down.
Hashtag professional podcast.
Yeah, that's true.
There you go.
It is. And a shout out to anybody who's been through all of our episodes, or anybody who's just joining us. We definitely do appreciate your listenership. Feel free to drop a comment on the old Apple podcasts, or I hate to say it, like and subscribe. Um, I think out of
The algorithm viewership just saying that word has already increased.
yeah. I hate that it took us like 40 some episodes before I actually said it. So there's that. Sound off. We definitely do appreciate hearing from people. Okay. So Diablo 4. We have we've been in a rough spot, and we've talked about that. We are closing out on season 1. And we just found out a little bit more about season 2. So the fireside chats with Diablo 4's Joe Shelley, Joe Piper, Pez Radar, and I am blanking on the last one. Nineball?
Antonio?
Antonio, yeah. They were gracious enough to come and hang out for about 2 hours and break down a lot of things about Diablo 4. And gentlemen, I was talking about a pre-show. I went on Reddit. I did. I go on Reddit. I go on Diablo Reddit. And it was weird, guys. It was so weird because people weren't upset. Um, there wasn't a bunch of all caps rage posts, no memes. It was very weird because it seems like we got a lot of really good stuff coming our way, and it's hard to complain about things that you've been asking for, like when you finally get it. So what we're going to do tonight, and it is October 5th, Leviathan. What we are going to do tonight is just kind of chat about what we liked, maybe what we're still hoping for, and not do a bullet by bullet point. There you can go check out the notes if you want just that information. We're not a news podcast, really. We don't put out enough episodes to do that, right? But we can.
If you've been listening to this podcast for a while, you know that we like to talk, and it was a 2-hour live stream, so we could easily turn that into 6 without breaking
Easily.
a sweat. I got work tomorrow morning. So I can't do that.
We're gonna respect everyone's time, ours and yours, listener, um, and not do that. But I will state, after tuning in yesterday, I caught the first half live, and then I caught the second half after it had finished. I was really excited to actually chat with some people about this because there's a lot of cool things that I've been kind of looking forward to. So let's go with the good, right? Let's go with the good. Then we'll take a break in the middle for some bad, and then we'll compliment sandwich this, okay? Because we're going to end on the good. Um, I don't I don't want us to end on like all drudgery. We'll just in the middle, a little break for complaints, and then back to the good. So I'm going to start first here with one of the things that I was pretty stoked about. I wish I would have known a few weeks ago, but still happy nonetheless. Dead hardcore characters renown will carry over finally. Um, I wish I would have known a few weeks ago so I could have been a little bit more reckless, but knowing that that is no longer a worry and just like a small thing to take off the plate was very exciting for me that my dead hardcore character will keep his renown. And in tandem with that, the bigger thing when it comes to hardcore is that scrolls of escape are finally going to work. Essentially, when I disconnect, if I've got one there, I'm going to be automatically portaled to safety, and I don't have to worry about a disconnect death, assuming I have one of them in my inventory, which honestly, I usually do at this point. Um, that is exciting to finally eliminate disconnects. Does it allow for abuse? They did kind of talk about that on the stream. It does allow for that to happen, but what can you do? Do you not implement it for the sake of some minor abuse? I don't know, but I'm personally excited to be able to go back into hardcore and have one less thing to worry about. So that was my first little good thing. I doubt that was the first thing for either of you. So what do you guys got?
Top of the list. Top of the
Yeah,
list.
yeah, I figured as much. So what do you guys got?
I think probably one of my favorite things was, something that you've heard me talk about for a very long time is that Uber uniques don't actually exist within this game. And obviously there's the whole, they're adding a reason to do a bunch of the in-game activities of Helltide, Nightmare Dungeons, world bosses and such. But it kind of like all culminates in Uber Duriel. My favorite Demon Lord, my absolute, I don't know which one of the seven is your guys' favorite. Duriel's always been mine. And so him being there, actually being able to like redo the fight and, not uber Lilith terms of difficulty, but actually scaled up and being a challenge instead of just kind of like, oh, there was a boss, is going to be a very, very nice change. But even if it's like a 1% chance killing him to have uber uniques drop means that there's a chance and that those items will exist. And they didn't specific the way that they phrased it during the stream. I'm perfectly fine with. They said you'll know somebody that has an Uber unique. Because I was just having some conversations with some other friends of mine, that that didn't understand just how rare the Uber uniques are in the game right now. But just I'm fine with not actually being able to go through and farm Duriel like hundreds of times and such. I 100% see my casual ass going through and like maybe doing him a couple dozen times or something, not getting lucky on any of the rolls, but that's fine. One of the seasons down the road, I'll eventually get it. It'll be great. Nerd words, he's on my friends list. He'll get one. I'll be able to see him fully decked. that that is perfectly fine by me. So even if this change, like honestly, doesn't even affect me of being able to find one of them, just the fact that they are now actually in the game with an avenue in order to acquire them is probably for me one of the bigger changes, in a list of like absolutely like great changes.
Yeah, they exist now. They're relevant,
Yeah,
right? They're
exactly.
they're real,
That's it.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
It's
Yep.
it's like one of those ones where if you were like a Diablo 3 player, I would normally cap out somewhere around like Paragon like 1200, 1500, something like that. Like not really like progressing like that far into the game. But if you were the type of person that was going through and regularly getting like 2500, 3000, 3000 plus, you will probably now actually be able to get like Uber uniques. Barring what the actual drop rate is, we don't know. I'm making assumptions here. I'm going on the positive side. Sue me. But if you're that type of person that's like dedicating that many hours into a season, then you probably have a decent chance at least going through and acquiring, a couple, at least one, like by the end, something like that.
And I would, add on to that. It does then add an element to the game that has been missing, which is a chase, right? They were described initially as chase items.
Yep.
The problem was you were running from North America to Australia, and even then, you might not have been able to chase it down. Um, Like it seemed impossible. Uh, to know that there is a way to do it is exciting, and then it's one more thing that you could do. Now we can argue that the pool of Uber uniques is still too small, um, and the chase may not be as big, but that's you can build off of that, right? To know that it exists and that there is a way to do it in season two is exciting, because none of us have had Doriel's Visage or a Shaco or a grandfather or any of them. So it would be nice to see them and then maybe get to play with them, and then there'll be more. We can chase more of them. Um, or heck, even in tandem with Uber Uniques, the other part that is also exciting is target farming, right?
Yeah.
We can target farm regular uniques.
Yeah, and from the phrasing in the stream, like not 100% sure the way that they had phrased it, but there's an avenue. You have to do nightmare dungeons. What was it? You have to do nightmare dungeons, hell tides, and um, whispers
Whispers, yeah.
in order to get the three bosses to unlock the materials that are required in order to summon Duriel. And while you summon those bosses, those individual bosses, it was the Beast in the Ice, the Calvetic Lord, and Vacheron. Which is great. That was one of my asks, is keeping him in the game from season one. That those three bosses also have their own unique like loot tables. They can still drop like anything, but there's specific uniques that only they can drop. And not sure if they're like all brand new uniques that only they can drop, or like each class has like a set like unique that can drop. Like this boss has a much higher chance of dropping a lidless wall for necromancers, so on and so forth. So it'd be interesting to see the actual mechanics play out on that one. If they have the chance of dropping like their own specific set like uniques that are only to that boss, or if they have a chance of dropping like a set list of class uniques.
Yeah, and really, I think speaking to that a little bit more, we haven't really had the ability to do that in any Diablo game before, right? Diablo 3 loot just drops. Diablo 2, there's levels and certain bosses are certain levels, so their loot pool can be thinner. But you can't like, oh, I'm gonna go kill Mephisto because I want to get a Shaco. Yes, he can drop a Shaco, but he can drop a lot of other stuff too. So I'll be curious how that works in Diablo. But it sounds good, and the ability to maximize or optimize your time better as a Diablo player is obviously a big win, right? That's really what Diablo is optimizing your time, optimizing your gameplay as best you can. So, yeah, I also agree that's a big win. I do want to come back to the hardcore thing real quick because unfortunately, Xanth, I am a list guy. I gotta look at things to go through them because there's so much here. But I do want to clear something up because after the stream was over, Pez, Adam Fletcher did like flesh out a bit about the hardcore renown because there was some confusion on how that worked. And you're absolutely right; it does carry over for sure. But there was some belief out there that it didn't. So I just want to clarify that your renown does carry over to hardcore, even if your character has died, which is great. Now, the caveat there though is if your character died before season 1 started, that still does not count. So it has to be a new character you're playing currently, whatever, so on and so forth. But no, I'm definitely excited about the bosses. I love fighting Duriel. I'm excited to jump back into that fight and see what they've done with the Uber version of it. The whole like killing bosses to get items to summon other bosses feels very Uber anyway, right? From D2. Yeah. And then of course D3. So I like that. In D3, they were terrible. And realistically pointless, like aside from just completing your seasonal journey. So I'm hoping that it really does play out to be valuable and worth doing. Because they didn't work out that way in Diablo 3, but they didn't have targeted loot tables in Diablo 3, so that's going to be interesting to see.
There was a time when they were worthwhile. It's like there was a time when doing Uber,
small period of time,
yeah. Not all classes could like benefit from it, but some did like really get a good boost from those Hellfire amulets.
Yeah, if you needed those amulets, you wanted an ancient one. Yeah, as a wizard, that was really never really a thing that we hunted, so it wasn't a thing. Really, not for any of the builds that I had played.
Versus like a demon hunter, where they were always like best in slot.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah, the wizard passes were terrible, so Hellfire Amulet by default was pretty terrible. But yeah, no, I agree. I think that's really awesome. I was honestly really excited to see the other two bosses. Varshan is fine. It's a fight, right? It was cool. Like I definitely didn't want him to go away, so I agree with Nine bringing him back is pretty awesome. Duriel, I know I'm gonna love that. I'm super excited. It's just the D2 lore there. The lore in general is pretty cool. But I'm excited about the new bosses. They looked really cool. They looked really different and interesting. How that plays out, I don't know. Do these end up being just loot pinatas for us that we, down in 15 seconds pretty easy? Probably at some point in the season, yes. Especially after reading some of like Adam Jackson's tweets, because he's also kind of riffed on some things they talked about in the live stream as well too that implies there's going to be a great power creep in the season. So that's interesting too. But yeah, I agree with Nine. Super excited about that. I'll tell you, like, I wasn't originally. The season theme's kind of whatever. Like, I feel like the big win was really in the quality of life things, and there is a lot of them. A lot of quality of life things that are awesome. For me, I think that was the big win. But before we go like deeper into that stuff, I think that everyone should really, especially if you're listening to this podcast, you should take a second and go to the blog and read the powers that are in the season. Because if you read those powers, because they didn't go over all the individual vampiric powers you're going to unlock as you play. And honestly, I think vampires are kind of stupid. Like, I'm not into vampires. That's not my thing. I'm into zombies. I'm into things, but vampires have never been my thing.
I'm currently like halfway through like a vampire movie marathon that I started in September and is ending.
There are great
Halloween.
vampire things, right? But it's a mixed bag, right? You've got your Twilights and you've got your Interviews with a Vampire. There's various degrees of vampire things out there, so we'll see how it goes. However,
I feel like both of those involve sexy vampires like that. You need a bigger contrast.
Well, okay, fine. 30 Days of Night vampire.
Okay, there we go.
Vampires a lot more. More.
I feel like you were gravitating too much towards sexy vampire.
I mean, that is, I would say 80 to 85% of vampire like literature is sexy vampire.
Sexy vampire.
The whole mystique.
These vampires don't seem sexy in D form.
Ugly, nasty, evil vampires are way cooler. I digress. But the point is that you should check out the blog because the vampiric powers, there's a lot of them, and they really do seem pretty impactful. I don't want to go through like all of them right there, but there's some really cool stuff that does look interesting, and it looks like these powers won't take up item slots, so that's cool. that seems really good. So now will it end up like season 1 where everyone's just using the barber? Maybe. We'll see. But I think that the spread of powers that they're adding in that vampiric like module they have that they're that you'll unlock, it seems really interesting and more interesting after the stream. Again, that part of it felt very kind of like meh, whatever. Quality of life stuff is what I was excited about, but after reading the blog, that stuff looks really cool. So I'm really interested to see how that plays out. But man, can we talk about town? Can we talk about town? Because I'll be honest with you, most of these changes are so good, right? They're so good, and I'm so glad they're happening, but they feel like layups, like fucking duh. Right? So you added a stash that we didn't have to walk like 5 screens away to get to in all of the towns. In fact, multiple stashes that are closer to the center of town and the waypoint. That's awesome. But there's no way that through internal and external testing that no one said that. They had to have known that, right? So it's just like, feels like a little bit of a layup, but hey, it's a win. We'll take the win. Moving the Obols vendor to the center, adding an occultist to the Tree of Whispers waypoint, which is already the best and most efficient waypoint in the game. Now it definitely is. I'll be there every time, which also means it'll probably be packed with people, which is going to be interesting.
Depending on only ever see 12.
Right.
Well, but that's in the world. I thought in the towns it could be up to 40.
Okay.
And which one does that consider? Right. Yeah. So I don't know if that it's a waypoint, so you'd think it would be considered a town point, but I don't know. We'll see.
That's a lot of stash tabs.
Yeah.
It is. Oh God. I don't want to trigger 9 again. So very, very excited about that. Very, very excited about that. So I think that's one of the biggest things for me is just the time saver of just that. Like it's going to reduce my time in town, and there's other things that are going to reduce my time in town as well. And that is what I want. I don't want Town Simulator, and Diablo 4 at times could feel like spending a little more time in town than I really wanted to. So I'm excited about that. for sure.
I don't think anybody's going to complain about that change. Um, yeah, less time in town is a very good thing. I also do, if we're going for like small little things that make a difference, being able to just write out skip the story now if you've completed the prologue. Um, it feels very small, and most of us have already completed the story. It's not a big deal, but I'm playing through with my son, and he hasn't finished the story yet. So he wasn't able to do any of the season mechanics, and it was harder because I don't want to play my season character, right? So it means next season he can just join me. He's done the prologue, you know. Um, that's kind of nice. Like that's a nice little thing. I'm like, okay, the game's been out. If you never made it through the story, we don't want to prevent you from enjoying seasonal content. So just skip it and come and do that. Um, I do like I'm on the fence about like the way seasons are implemented, that they're kind of distanced from the story. Um, but also I kind of like it too. It's tough. The way a Path of Exile season goes is, you still have to go through the acts and you encounter the story through, the way the campaign works out. Um, Whereas now, you have the ability to skip the acts, and sometimes maybe there's layers of redundancy where you have less of those benchmarks. Um, but I don't hate it either. What are your thoughts on this as the seasons have been, and we see it again, like it's not integrated into the main campaign? Very much encouraged to skip the campaign to go enjoy the seasonal content.
Well, so during the stream itself, they go through and they talked a little bit about the lore and the reasoning behind like the season of blood of the vampires and such. The reason that we're able to like fight off the controlling aspect of being turned into like a vampiric thrall is because of us having consumed the blood of Lilith. So playing through the prologue just to get that story beat, kind of like makes me think that whereas like season one didn't have too much besides like, oh, you're the hero. This one at least is kind of going back and tying into one of the central story points of Diablo 4 and the Blood of Lilith and such. So I imagine that they'll probably do some little things like that with the continuing, that if that's where the cutoff point is, that anything that they reference might at least kind of like stay within there, because you at least got that story, and you kind of can figure, oh, we beat Lilith at the end. You can figure that out. I wouldn't mind more, obviously. It going through and having a bit, more to do with some of the story points and such that had happened. But I imagine that's probably what they're going to save like the expansions for, and that then if we're getting yearly expansions, that means they really only have to come up with the four seasonal story beats, and that, well, once the expansion comes out, you beat the prologue and then beat like the prologue for the expansion, or you just jump right into the story at that point, something along those lines.
Yeah,
At least to like kind of keep you you're always kind of like kept, up to date with like what the story is, and then the seasonal themes will reference something that's quick and easy to do. But because you know I even though lore and story is very important to me, I know it's very important to Nerdwords, but it is one of those ones that most people that play these games don't care, and that hurts me. But they don't, and so giving them the option to play how they want to play, how can I argue against it?
yeah, I mean, I completely agree. The biggest thing for me is I just hope it fits the story of Diablo 4 thus far. I think they did a good job with season one, feeling like, hey, like this very much felt like it could be a part of Diablo 4. It didn't feel completely like off the wall and out of left field. The vampire stuff, because of the vampiric presence in the game as you play through it. I mean, look, and they were there in the sense of like you could kind of consider Bloodlords vampires throughout Diablo 2 and Diablo 3, and even Diablo 1. I mean, I believe Bloodlords were in Diablo 1 as well, but it wasn't like we're vampires, right? It was kind of just like they just pulled blood from you, right? So I'm curious to see how they tie that in, and how Lord Zir ties into really just the fight against hell in general, right? Is he hell adjacent? Is he against hell, right? Is this a whole different threat that is like separate from hell? That's, do the vampires fight demons? Like, there's a lot of like interesting dichotomies they can play with there. But it's also probably one of those gameplay trumping lore type situations where they just want to add in a cool mechanic, and this is a way to do it. So I really want to see how they execute it. But they have some potential there to do some really cool stuff. And again, like Nine said, story matters. So I hope it's really cool. If it's not, I'll be okay. But I hope it's really, really cool. But I'm not put off by it. Like when they first said vampires, I was like, oh god. All right, cool. And now I'm like, okay, well, let's see. And like the little shots we've seen look pretty cool, so we'll see how it goes.
I mean, if you've seen the screenshot of Lord Zir himself, you were mentioning earlier, less sparkly vampires, more ugly vampires.
Yeah, he's very ugly.
He's very ugly. Yeah,
he's very ugly. He also looks kind of derpy in his steepled fingers, like. But yeah, no, it's I'm excited. I'm excited for sure. We'll see how it goes. I hope I feel that way a week into the season with Lord Zir, because Lord Zir is one of the bosses that we'll be able to fight. Like, he's not like an Uber boss, but he's one of the bosses you have to farm to get the pieces to summon Uber Duriel, I believe. Correct?
I'm not sure.
Maybe that was Varshan, and there's a whole tree. You guys can go look at it. I don't know if that's accurate or not off the top of my head, but I do know that there was a whole tree in the live stream.
Yeah, I want to say that he was one of the ones that was like, him and Lilith are disconnected from Duriel. On, go away, YouTube ad. I do not care. So looking at the tree, it seems to say that it's literally just the echo of Vashran, and then actually the Galvanic Saint.
So it was not him then. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, it was not him. And I mean, like, according to the tree, I thought I remember them saying that we also had to fight the beast in ice in order to summon Duriel, but he's not part of the Duriel tree. So
okay, gotcha. But yeah, either way, we'll see how it plays out. But I agree with Nine. I am excited. Look, any new story elements in Diablo continues to flesh the world out and make it bigger and better. So yeah, I'm excited to see how it plays out. I just hope it's not stupid. I feel like that's a fair ask.
No notes.
Yeah. Just don't make it stupid. Okay. I think that's fair. Okay. So here's another question. We've seen in season 1 new powers and build ideas put onto gems, right? I mean, like, we can just call them gems. We're seeing new build and powers put onto these vampiric selections, right? So essentially, we're gaining more power from our gear, while the skill tree itself and maybe Paragon boards are still a little light. Do you think we're ever going to see the stuff that we're seeing in season 1, season 2 here? Because there is a sense of impermanence about it, shifting to the skill tree, shifting to the Paragon board, so that these are not. Because eventually, if these are to go core, if we were to say that, we're going to be juggling so many different systems to put builds together, as opposed to having them in the ideal spot.
Now, hang on a second. We can't go negative yet. You said.
Oh no! No.
Trigger me into a negative place. So
okay, and I apologize for that triggering.
To answer your question without getting negative, because I'll come back to it later. Yes, I agree with you. I think that we are in Diablo 4 beta version 2 now. We're about to enter beta version 3, and these are beta level changes. These are things that should have been addressed in endgame betas that I know existed out there. The town things, the different Nightmare Sigil things, which we'll talk about, a lot of these things. And I think that these powers, both with the Season Malignant and with the Vampiric powers, is a way for them to test, okay, how does the everything shift in the game with adding these powers? And I would be shocked if those don't become legendary aspects later, unique items later, or, like you said, expanded skill tree later, right? I think that if some of these become like, oh god, I've got to use this for my build because it's just so powerful, right? That's a great way for them to go, okay, this power worked great, let's just bank that power, and then maybe they add that into a season 6 as a unique item or something. So I would be shocked if they didn't. So I thought that's really the design intent in general, is just to test the water for new things, and that's what they did through Diablo 3 seasons. Is what Path does often as well too, and I see that very much happening with Diablo 4.
I mean, it's like a common thing in like World of Warcraft. The
Yeah,
borrowed power is like the
yeah,
way it's kind of like what the mechanic is referred to, where the power is coming from an item or a seasonal mechanic of something that isn't permanent to your character. And once that expansion season or whatever is over, then it goes away. And
yep.
something that I've seen in World of Warcraft for a very long time is that very impactful like trinkets, set bonuses, or legendaries, and various other aspects of like borrowed power from throughout an expansion that were like kind of like class defining,
Yep.
that once they got into the next expansion they would just roll into like the base class. This is just now a passive or a skill or a talent choice or something along those lines. And so it was
Yep.
actually for me a little bit surprising. I'd already messaged you guys, when we were talking before the stream, what your thoughts were. Was I was thinking that when they're mentioning vampiric powers and such, where like the malignant hearts were nice, but I figured that it was time that they start making additions to the skill tree. And it was because there's also one of those ones where we see that like Vashran is going to be kept on, and malignant mobs are going to be kept on. They won't be dropping hearts, but they'll
Hang
be
on,
like
time out.
little.
I thought you said malignant moms just now, and that made my
Hmm.
heart happy. Anyway, sorry.
I also heard
Just
malignant moms.
okay, all right. Um,
Yeah, but
yep. No. Moving on. The where was my point going? That one of the things that we would see is that these vampiric powers would be like temporary additions in the skill trees for all of the classes, and that like anything that was like really cool or really powerful that they could just like keep on as like a passive, or like one of the like a new core skill just for this season, but it was like
Right.
really impactful. So we'll maybe modify another core skill, or we'll keep it on, or something along those lines. It's still something that they can do because it is kind of like its own skill tree, that that they're adding in, into the game. It's like, oh, if one skill tree wasn't enough, how about two skill trees?
Yeah.
um
And a
and so
Paragon
it's,
board.
yeah,
Mhm.
in a Paragon board.
Well,
So it would be one of those ones where just going about it in a way where it becomes additive to the rest of the game and the my season 3 experience, and beyond and such, would be cool.
Well, it's
I,
like empowered combo points in World of Warcraft for the rogue. Exactly what you're talking about. They introduced that in Shadowlands, and that became baseline in the character's skill tree in the new expansion in Dragonflight. So, yeah, it's a Blizzard thing, but a lot of games do it too. Use those seasons to test great powers and see how they shake things up. And if they work great, then hey, let's add it in.
Yeah, I mean the concept of like borrowed power is just, it's really common across like RPGs in general. So
Yeah.
definitely interested to see how it shakes. I mean, first, I'm very excited to play with those new powers. I'm looking forward to new builds and definitely just different ways to play the druid. Um,
I get a bat.
yeah,
Right.
new pets. Um, so it is exciting for that, but then it's also looking to the future. I I've thought some of the Malignant Hearts were cool, and I would like to be able to have that access somewhere else, right? And then I'm sure it'll be the same thing with these powers. And one of the criticisms is around the skill tree for Diablo. So it seems like a logical place to be able to kind of work these in. I if we are talking on the positive side still though, I do appreciate the class agnostic part of it. The limited pool for malignant hearts, right?
Hmm.
Like, oh, I'm making limited choices, but now for all these vampiric powers to be more focused on every class is awesome. To not have like, okay, I just choose this one because it's the only one that works, but I'm gonna have to do more thought. I'm all for that.
It's something that, again, bringing up World of Warcraft, but it's a common problem for anyone that's making something for like big games with large player bases in a like a large number of like classes or archetypes that exist within the game, is that all the time that you would spend developing something that is specifically just for this class and just for this spec is time that is not being developed for all the other specs and classes that exist within your game. Um, so it's one of those ones that you will probably see that the vast majority of seasonal bonuses and stuff will be more like this one where they are class agnostic, because all of that development time of going through and developing the vampiric power that allows you to summon a bat. Is it going to be the best for all classes? No. Is it going to be the best for any class? Maybe not. But it's still something that is just usable by every class and isn't like segregated from anybody. So everybody gets to experience it. Everybody gets to use it as a tool if they want to. And it's just, like that was all of your development time, just make that one ability versus, well, we have 5 classes, so then we have to then make 5 of those abilities and then spreading up that, that dev time in order to do, things of that nature. When you're going through and you're looking at it from like the limited time, limited resources aspect, it makes a lot more sense to build generic things than class specific ones. Not saying class specific ones are cool. They're really nice. I enjoy them. Legion, like that was great, but also, it doesn't have to exist in every season.
Okay, I feel like I'm dominating here, but I feel like we've talked about this a lot, and seeing it and hearing it was not what I expected. But you can see it under experience and monster leveling. Prevent monsters from being less powerful as character level increases by making monsters in World Tier 3 and 4 match the current player level at a minimum after levels 55 and 75 respectively.
Because
How
of
many
that change.
how many times have we brought this up
Yeah.
in the past several weeks about how it just felt wrong? And they did go into it during the fireside of like wanting to give, the feeling of destroying enemies in the open world because you were way more powerful, but it ended up just feeling bad because you couldn't get any XP from them. This feels good. I'm excited for this, in tandem with the fact that we're already going to want to be in the open world again more with the new vampire camps that are going to be spawning and stuff like that, and then hell tides are going to be more rewarding, and like it's just layers and layers of why this is even better. But just that simple little thing right there is going to make my playtime so much more enjoyable and decrease the kind of slog that happens post 55, 60, 70, whatever it might be. And then we also learned that getting to 100 is 40% faster.
Yep. So like one of those ones where one of the biggest complaints was, the game doesn't respect my time and forcing me to do kind of like a soulless grind. Well, that grind is a hell of a lot less now. So that's in my book at least is a positive change.
Yeah, as an elitist with multiple level 100s, how do you feel about that, nerd words?
I actually feel the opposite. So first, let me start with the first thing you mentioned. I love the level change. That's huge. Because now if I want to just go run dungeons and not do the stupid fucking nightmare sigils, I can do that. And that's great. That's what I wanted the ability to. I could do it, but at a much decreased level. So it would take a lot longer to level it up. But I think that's a huge change. I'm glad they reverted it. I wish they would own the fact that it was a bad change and just say that, just for my own my soul, my pride. But it's fine. It's okay. They don't have to. But and maybe I'm in the minority here, right? This is obviously my opinion. This is not the expressed opinion of PureDiablo.com or my co people here. But
Well, I haven't heard it. I might agree with it.
I didn't think that the level 100 grind was that bad. In fact, I thought it was already a little too light. I liked the level 100 grind in the preseason I thought that was fantastic. The problem wasn't how long it took to get to 100. The problem was that how boring it was getting to 100 because of what you had to do it, right? I think that like keeping the journey as long as it was, but making it more interesting on the way would be an answer. This is a great band-aid, but like I don't want this to be like Diablo 3 where you spend an hour and a half and then you're level 70 and then you're in the end game at that point, right? And not to say that the end game starts at level 100 because it does not in Diablo 3 or Diablo 4, so I'm not implying that, but I just like if this means that I will hit level 100 and spend a little more time playing the game than I did this past season, that's awesome, right? But if I know anything about ARPGs, especially seasonal content that don't have leaderboards, when I hit level 100 and I'm geared, I'm done. So this just means I'll be done faster. I could be wrong, but at a glance, this I didn't see that as a positive change. I liked the length of to level 100. I liked that it took a little bit to grind. I liked that not everyone was hitting level 100. And it's just a time investment. It's not difficult. It just took more time. But I also understand the other side of it, right? Like I get it too. It's just my personal take on it.
I mean, if we're just going off of like the whole 40% faster, even on the new system, like I'm not hitting level 100.
Sure.
Unless it like significantly like increases my playtime. Because what
Well,
is it like? I this past weekend, Neve finally caught up to me in levels, and so we knocked out our the seasonal journeys. We went through, we did some PvP, we did the world bosses, and got her 43, and so finished the seasonal journey, and that's it. I'm done. But I did it all at 87, which if it's 40% faster, that's not 100.
right.
So we'll see.
No, for sure. I just think that like it's 40% faster, but then they're also like a separate from that 40% faster, like increasing the bonuses to be multiplicative for XP gains, and they're increasing the like now the incense are going to give XP as well too. So there's just other things that contribute to that too. I think all of that combined,
Well,
it just maybe
well,
again,
all
I
of that,
could be
all
wrong.
of that combined is the 40% faster.
That's not how it reads in the blog, and that's why I was bringing it up because it's separate. Like they're separate entities. It says bullet point decreases time spent to level 100, making the journey about 40% faster. The experience gained from killing monsters at level 50 plus has been significantly increased and rises steadily as you level. And then there's 3 more bullet points that outline additional changes to the XP as well too. So it's like that makes me believe that that 40% is before you get to those other 3 things. And again, I could be wrong. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, specifically like listening to them go through and talk about the changes, like in the stream, like
Yeah,
they were going through and talking about it. Like these are the things that are gonna fill that to be like the 40% faster with the multiplicative changes, all that other
sure.
types of stuff. Yeah.
Which I mean, okay, so if
Because
I spent 2 weeks playing, now I'm going to spend 8 days playing.
Yeah, which is like one of those ones where it's like, well, you say 8 days, but like if the actual in-game loop that they've added in is interesting, you're gonna go back to 2 weeks.
And see, and that brings me to my key point. Are we to the negative point yet?
Um, hmm, okay. Well, let's get some preface. Okay.
There's a lot more
If
good still we haven't talked about. But yeah,
that's true. Okay. We're going to take a small break here to go and become negative Nancy's.
nice.
So
You guys know I'm good at that.
if negative nerd words, if you will. So if you are riding high right now in all the Diablo news, and there's even more to come because there's another one of these on the 10th.
Yeah, there
Oh man. Um,
is.
but if you're riding high on that and you're just like, you know what? I just want to enjoy this. Okay, take a moment. I'm going to set a timer here. We're going to do 10 minutes. 10. I'm going to stay.
I'll go for
Oh, yeah. So we're going to do 10 minutes of our complaints. And then we're going to go back to the good stuff. Okay. So if you are listening and again, you want to just mute a little bit or just fast forward, I guess. I often listen to podcasts in the car. So I'm not quick on the fast forward, but just it's okay. Turn it down. All right. Timer goes now.
I'm still auto salvaging Lightning Storm, Drifting Shades, and I think Backstabbers is worse than it was prior.
Yeah, I would agree with all of those sentiments actually.
Yeah.
It okay. Yeah, that was really fast. And now you put so
I'm just
Look,
giving you time.
sure, that's fair. I'm not gonna take up 10 minutes. I think that the thing for me is that like I want to preface by saying we haven't gotten to the rest of the positive things yet, and there's a lot more positive than negative. I don't think this addressed the core problems of the game. I think that all the changes were quality of life layups that were announced. I mean, we all knew it that played any amount of the beta. We knew all these things needed to change. Positioning in town, teleporting straight into a nightmare dungeon instead of outside the fucking nightmare dungeon. Like it doesn't take a grade A designer to figure that out. It just takes a person with a
Well,
brain who's ever played a video
like,
game.
I will
Um,
stop you there, like because remember they explained they went into great detail of the whole thing about the nightmare dungeons is that it teleporting outside the nightmare dungeons was the quick fix in order to
right.
get it done in time, but their intention was to teleport in. It's just this is how they're going to be able to implement it.
And no, and I get that, but my point is the game went live without the ability to teleport to Nightmare Dungeons to begin with. Like that's my point. Is it like a lot of these quality of life things that anyone who's played this game for a week knows, and these people have been making this game for years. So you would think that some of them would have been obvious. Now, again, I'm glad that they're happening. It is huge that they're happening, and I'm very happy that they are. And I think we talked about on several podcasts, over the last few, that this game is going to be, I think, in its full better form in about a year. I think in about a year it's going to be about where we want it to be a little bit better. And I think all these are massive changes in the right direction. But the vampiric system and the UI for it feels very, very mobile game. They're adding in like 4 or 5 new currencies between the crafting materials that drop for gems now, which is good, but still it's a new currency, right? And then you've got currencies that are going to drop from the vampiric powers, and then there's the whole what is it? Ferocity, divinity, eternity pieces. They're going to drop to get those vampiric powers and unlock those vampiric powers. And then you also have like the pieces to summon Uber Duriel. So like they're all called different things that just sound convoluted. And again, I said this before Diablo 4 launch. I already felt like there were too many currencies and it felt confusing. Obviously, playing the game, it's not that confusing, but it's just like, is it really that necessary to have so many different currencies? And we keep adding more. And I think about this in the sense of like, I am fine with it. With my girlfriend playing the game, I know she's gonna look at it. She's gonna, yeah, I'm gonna need you to walk me through this. So it's really just me bitching and moaning because I'm gonna have to like take my girlfriend through a tutorial to explain her how it works. So it's probably more of a personal thing. 7 already? Shit.
No. You have 7 more minutes, is
Oh
what I'm
no, I'm
saying.
not. Okay, good. You're still doing Nightmare Sigils, and all of these quality of life changes are great. But all the changes tell me, at least my hypothesis, and obviously it's a guess, it is not fact, is that I will play the game less, be done faster, and I still don't have an end game to grind. Yes, I can go grind uniques. I can target from those uniques and I can fight Duriel. I'm gonna fight the hell out of Duriel. I'm so excited about it. But what am I gonna do with that after? And that is a Diablo problem that's always been a problem. So I think that these are great things, and I think they would be greater if there was something then to take and do with that. And I think that'll come in season 3, season 4, season 5. So again, steps in the right direction, but a lot of them feel like they were easy wins. And I hope it doesn't mean that I play the game less this season than I did in season 1.
That's not the first time that I've heard that. That the in-game boss loop that they're adding in is not in-game. But I have to ask you, what is in-game then?
I mean, it's not that it's not end game; it is end game, right? It's the end of the game. But I'm saying,
well, I mean, I just wanted to point out because you specifically said that there still is no end game.
Well, okay. There's nothing to do. Okay, the end game with Diablo 2, with Diablo 3, with Diablo 1, after you beat the campaign, is to increase your power. Diablo 3 is the only Diablo that found a way to channel that power in a way that made you feel like you were progressing towards something and using it for something once you got it, right? Once I get my Shaco, what do I go do with it? If I've already beat my Nightmare Sigil 100, if I've already taken down Uber Lilith, and I've already checked those boxes, I just feel like I will be done with the game at that point. It's not a problem. It's just been a constant Diablo thing for a long time. It's why like a leaderboard system or some sort of system in that regard to take that power, or a PvP arena of some kind, something where I could take that power that I've gained and that grinding that I spent grinding those bosses to get those items and then use it for something is what I'm looking for. I'm still going to play the game, but again, if I'm going to get to 140% faster, I just feel like I'll be done faster. And I could be dead wrong, and I promise you I will own that on the podcast next time if I am wrong. but we'll see. That's it.
No,
I only need 5. It's fine.
yeah, it's funny because I see people going through and being like, oh, they still don't have an end game. I'm gonna go back to Diablo 2. I was like, what the
There's
fuck
no
are you
end.
doing? But
Right, there's no end game in Diablo 2 either. Yeah, no, and
Yeah.
that's why I'm saying it's not a Diablo 4 problem. It's a Diablo 2 problem as well. It's just the difference is that the Diablo 2 loot grind is more interesting, so I find myself leaning back towards that more.
And there's where I will go to my negative.
Right, because none of this fix that.
I
None
I
of this fix it.
I think the skill tree and itemization are things that have to be hit sometime in the next year.
Yeah.
We need a loot 2.0 because that is really the last little piece that's missing. And what I think I'm seeing right now is the establishing of that loot treadmill, right? Of like how do you find it? How do you get it? How do you get more of it? How do you go through that whole cycle? That the same reason we've killed Mephisto thousands, if not millions, of time.
Our ears bled and our eyes
right.
fell out of our face. Yes.
Because each time there was always that chance that I'm going to get that next little thing that I've never got before, the thing that I'm chasing, and I'm going to keep doing this because there's some fun in it, right? Or I'm going to slaughter fields of cows because that's where I know I can maybe find this rune that I'm looking for.
That next cow might be Jaw. It might be
right.
Jaw.
So
it might be Jaw.
And unfortunately, the way the itemization works right now, there isn't that, right?
Right.
The pool is a little limited, and we are going to see something. Okay, I've got like 3 more minutes. So we are going to get a little bit about like some unique reworks next week, but that's not fixing itemization itself. I think the push into more class agnostic things might help with itemization, but ultimately, whites and blues need to have a purpose again. Like calling back to no, and we will leave that line of demarcation between us, Nimbo. Um, but having something to do with them, I would love. I feel like Diablo 4 is the game that can bring back rune words. I think that's a good chase. Um, but I'm not going to fix itemization. I'm just going to admire the problem and say it needs some work. And the skill tree needs some work. But no, I'm going to say this. I have one more point, but that'll be for the compliment sandwich. So
Okay.
we got 2 more minutes of complaints. 2 more minutes. Get it out.
I don't agree that rune words should go into Diablo 4 at all, and I definitely don't want to change white and blue items. You're insane.
Hey.
I don't get that.
This is complaints.
I don't
This
know
isn't disagree with
overlay, but I'm pointing at him right now.
other direction. You're pointing at me, but
On my
again,
screen, I'm pointing at him.
no, see you would, but this isn't argue with me. This is complaint. You're not supposed to complain at me about me. Like that's
this was our 10 minutes to complain about anything I want.
That's it. That's right.
I should have been more.
I want you to unsay that because the rune word grind in Diablo 2 is fun and it's good in a sense, but it also broke the game completely.
Oh,
like, why do anything besides go for spirit? And I don't want to see that in Diablo 4 where every character's running around with a goddamn spirit sword. Like I don't want that. But I also like. Let's be honest. We have this live stream coming up on the 10th, and there sounds like there's some significant itemization changes, so that could shift some things. But like, unless I can start trading, I will say I believe, unless I'm mistaken, you could trade the vampiric powers or something with the vampiric powers, correct? So that could create an economy.
I'm not sure if it was vampiric powers, but you can trade the parts to summon.
That's right,
Duriel.
for the Uber bosses, right? So there's something. Now, what is I don't know how valuable or how hard it's going to be to obtain those things. So we'll see how that all plays out. But I think that what Diablo 4 is missing is a community economy. I think that is what's missing, and it's missing that economy because the itemization is just not. It's not terrible. There's definitely been worse. I just don't think that it's the best it can be, and it's not the best it's going to be. I definitely see things that they could do to make it much better in the future. Again, I'm a proponent for all the legendary aspects that exist. If they were just in your skill tree, it's a much more interesting system.
Sunshine, lollipops, and rainbows. Everything that's wonderful is what I feel when
40% more damage and your skeletons whirlwind.
Yeah.
Yeah, those skeletons deal 40% more damage as your legendary affix, and your skeletons have whirlwind unique.
That's it.
Yeah.
Okay.
It is now officially time.
That's not fair. Dying Ball
Shine,
That's good. I got fuck Lightning Storm, fuck Drifting Shade, and I don't like the backstab. I don't like the backstab change.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we're gonna shift into back to good things, and one of the things that I wanted to bring up in our negative, but it's not a negative. If you've been paying any attention, and Pure Diablo does have a sister site in which they focus on Cyberpunk. Cyberpunk put out a pretty substantial new release. Cyberpunk was much maligned when it came out and has been getting glowing reviews. I think there's something there. Now, I don't want to wait 3 years for Diablo 4 to be in its place where people are going, this game is amazing now, right? That's a long time to wait. But it feels like we're seeing a lot of those things happen right now. It's starting with small, with quality of life things that absolutely should have happened at the beginning. But then it leads to much bigger things that make the game keep moving well beyond its initial shelf life that we might have seen. So I'm very excited, and I felt like it was an apt comparison after. Like, so when I first heard Cyberpunk and to see some of the stuff that's coming around about it, I had definitely written it off. Like, I guess I'll just miss it. But now I've actually been intrigued. And if I wasn't so busy playing so many other goddamn games, I would go and pick it up. It's just like the worst time.
It's the best.
But eventually, yeah.
So I never even played Cyberpunk, but that had to have been probably one of the best marketing lines I had ever heard.
I platinumed Cyberpunk the second weekend it was out, and I thought it was a great game. And yeah, it had bugs, but it wasn't any worse than any Bethesda release ever. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I thought it was a good game. I played on console though, not on PC, so I didn't have the troubles that a lot of PC players had. So.
Yeah. Just something about Idris Elba looking me straight in the eye through the camera and saying the game is fixed. Like,
yeah, that's the answer. Bring Idris Elba into season 3 or season 4 as the character. They got Gemma Chan, now get Idris Elba, and we'll call it good. That's it.
I mean, it could work.
Well, I think that all of what you just said is kind of adjacent to the actual problem that Diablo 4 had. And it's not that the game is bad. It's not a bad game. It's not a bad game. It's a great game. Campaign was really good. I've gotten hundreds of hours out of it, and I'm going to get hundreds more. It's just that once you get to a certain point, the compelling nature of it falls off. And when you've got Starfield, you've got Baldur's Gate, you've got Final Fantasy 16, you've got Armored Core, you've got Phantom Liberty for Cyberpunk, right? Assassin's Creed Mirage dropped last night, and that's all I'm chomping at the bit to go play. You've got, if you're a Call of Duty fan, Modern Warfare 3 is coming out, Super Mario Brothers Wonder is coming out, you've got Spider-Man 2 on PlayStation. I mean, man, I really am ignoring a lot of games to go play a game that has nothing for me to do in it right now. That's the problem. It's more so that it's a very competitive year, and that's great for us, the consumer. So it's going to force the hands at Blizzard to do better. And look, credit to the team, man. They have been super transparent and talked with us and honest, and they've rolled back changes that were shit changes, right? So changes that no one liked, and they've wound those back. Kudos to them. They're learning through the iteration process. It's just, again, feels like a beta. But we need to go to the positive, right?
Yeah.
Positive stuff.
Well, and this is a positive that it's getting better.
It's a huge positive because the developers are reacting in real time to player feedback.
Yep, exactly. Yep, I completely agree.
And I have some expectations for the chat on the 10th. and I'm pretty sure that they're going to be saying some things that not everybody's going to be happy with, but that's their
Yes.
job as a developer, to nerf the things that need to be nerfed and make perceived negative changes when they need to. People are going to hate it, but people will forget it in the long run. As long as you continue to go through and make good, impactful changes that moves the game forward, and those negative changes, are like warranted.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and there are elements of Diablo 4, specific affixes on items and stats that you can collect that are inherently broken and more powerful than everything else without question. Those need to be brought in line, and other things need to be moved up to be more competitive with those options, to create a better itemization system for everybody. And it sounds like we're probably getting some of those things, which you're right, is going to create some emotions. But I think that needs to happen too. It's going to be huge.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I would like to see player power be reduced pretty significantly, because I already think we're in season 1, and we're like, the barber power made us ridiculous. Like, people just smashing Uber Lilith, smashing Nightmare Tier 100 without like bugs, right? Just using those mechanics is nuts. But we talk about quality of life changes. I think that we're gonna say end game activities changes are really nice.
Pains you to say it.
Well, I had to. But yeah, Legion events are going to spawn more often. World bosses are going to spawn more often. The timers are going to be longer and more visible, which is great. Like, all of those things are super good. Gold and experience rewards are going up for Helltide chests, for cashing in Grim Favors. Will we do those still? I hope, because I kind of liked interacting with the Tree Whisperers, but it just feels like after a certain point you just don't. It's not worth the investment of time anymore, unless you just happen to be right by one and do it.
Well, you need to do whispers to get to get to Varshan, right?
Right. I know, but again, once I've gotten. Again, that's why I don't call it an endgame system. Am I going to be doing that? If I'm level 100 and I've been 100 for 3 weeks, am I still doing Tree Whispers? I hope that answer is yes. I don't think the answer is going to be yes, but I hope so.
Yeah. I guess it really will come down to, which is the question. How engaging are those new world boss systems going to be? Because one of them is specifically the Tree Whispers.
Right.
Right. And what was I going to say? For the definition that you put forth, I actually don't see you doing it outside of that. Like, you could potentially go through and trade for those pieces now as well. Right. So you don't even really have to engage with it, because they are adding some like nice changes to where the item rewards that you get from the Tree of Whispers, are bumped up, because
they're
changing
with the right item too.
Yeah, and so when you go through and you open a epic chest or a legendary chest of chests, and one chest drops, everything else is like boots.
Yeah.
Now it will
that
all be
fixed.
chest pieces.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good. So more target farming, by the way, as well too. So.
Yeah. So what was I saying? So one of the things that we haven't talked about is that they're changing the way that items work, and so the monster level will increase the base item power level. I'm losing myself here, but yeah, the higher the monster level is, the higher the item level is, and it can go above 825. The new cap is going to be like 925, I believe. And so the Tree Whispers will drop. I had it here for a second, and now I can't find it in the list again. I think it was like 10 or 20 item levels higher than what like your level should be. So it will, stay at least competitive. Upgraded. So regular caches are 10 item power. Upgraded caches are now 20 item power.
And the sigils that the caches are dropping are always going to be within 5 levels of the highest one you've completed too.
So I don't get like a 26 when I'm doing 40.
Yeah, which is great. That's a huge
which is again great. But that will cap out, at level 100, because will just be the plus 20 item power levels to your level 100 gear. You can surpass that doing Nightmare Dungeons.
Right.
You can get, because that's only going to cap out at like, 845, something along those lines, or somewhere in between. I don't remember what the math is, and it's too late at night for me to try to remember, but it will cap out, and you will get higher item level stuff through Nightmare Dungeons. So it will drop off.
Yeah. But they're also increasing, like, what is it? increasing the rewards for like events that you're gonna find in the world and in dungeons. And basically like fixing like the broken ass NPCs that die to like a little spider poisoning them in dungeons as well too. So like a lot again, but these are all quality of life things that through beta testing like would have come out very easy. I'm glad they're happening, but they feel like softball wins. Hey, we'll take them. Let's take the wins. They're good, but now we can move on to bigger, more pressing problems, which again, we still have another 2-hour live stream. So I'm sure there's quite a bit they're addressing in that live stream when it comes to itemization. It looks like it's completely focused around itemization and like the stuff that they're doing in that regard. Maybe some skill tree and class balance stuff too, I think.
Yeah, there's class balance is also going to be included.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously as a sorcerer player who's been on a roller coaster fucking ride since Diablo 4 started, I'm really listening intently there. Super excited, so I also think, and I hesitate to say this, but everyone knows that I've been a Nancy about Nightmare Sigils since beta. It seems like they finally did the thing that I want them to do, which is remove objectives and just let me go kill the boss. And that makes it more of a regular dungeon than a Nightmare dungeon to me. There's still going to be dungeons that have objectives and things like that, but there are
you're just not going to play them.
Yeah, I'm literally going to shard all of those. I'm literally just going to go do the ones with no objectives. And I mean, we'll see how that plays out, right? Like, I think in small doses, the other dungeons are fine. Just like in small doses in Diablo 3, bounties are fine. But, doing 20 straight rounds of full Act 1 through 5 bounties because you haven't got your fucking ring to drop makes you want to gouge your eyes out. And I felt that in the new season of Diablo 3, by the way. I had really bad luck on my Ring of Royal Grandeur, so... But yeah, again, we'll see how it plays out. But I really think that's going to be a positive change for Nightmare Sigils. I still feel how I feel about Nightmare Sigils. And again, the point remains kind of coming back to what we were talking about the negatives is that, like, okay, I've cleared a Nightmare Sigil 100. What is my incentive to go clear another Nightmare Sigil 100? Is there incentive there? And there might not be, and that's okay. But that's what I think the key that's missing that's going to make a bigger impact on at least the hardcore fan base and player base that plays a lot of time, going to keep us engaged a bit longer. And I think that's why, like with Diablo 3, typically a week or two, we're done with the season. Diablo 4, it was about the same. Diablo 2, like I'll play that ladder off and on, not quite as hard as I play Diablo 3, Diablo 4, but jumping in, just doing trav runs, whatever, to find loot and just grinding to level 99 is the long grind there. So that's why I think them shortening the level 100 grind in Diablo 4 hits me the way it does. But again, that could just be the Diablo 2 nerd in me, and I probably should get over that. So.
I'm with you on the shortening of the road to 100. I do like it being longer. Not longer for longer's sake,
Right.
but like when, yeah, especially with, as you mentioned before, like when you have these new things that are happening and you're enjoying it, when things aren't dropping, but you're still making that small incremental progress towards a new Paragon point or something like that, it still feels like your time is being valued, right?
Yeah.
But if that becomes too short, then you don't have another new Paragon point. You just have that thing that you've been looking for hasn't dropped.
Right.
So always having like that, just that little bit extra is nice.
I would love it if Duriel gave you like a big old buttload of XP. Right, so like to give me like while I'm farming all this stuff and doing this stuff, like I kill Duriel and I get like a bar, like 2 bars of XP for it. That'd make it even better, right? That kind of gives me more incentive to want to grind him out, to 1, get better loot, and 2, still getting good XP for doing it too. So I'm not sacrificing one for the other. We'll see how that. Typically that's not the case in Diablo games. Boss killing is not how you get XP, but hey, that'd be a cool little add-on too. I just like the idea of killing Duriel again.
Repeatable ancients.
Yeah, well, I don't know about that. that kind of sounds cancer now that you mention it. Never mind. Maybe that's the wrong answer. I just finished my Hell playthrough like the other day, so that hits home. Yeah, but they also, again, with Nightmare Sigils, they improved some of the layouts. They made it more linear, less back and sidetracking, which they had already fixed a little bit. Now it looks like it's even better. Like Nine said, Drifting Shade still sucks. Lightning Storm still sucks. Those things still suck. But yeah, one
of the things that I liked that they were going through and talking about with the Nightmare design, the Nightmare dungeon design. It wasn't even so much that they made them more linear; it's that they made it easier to tell that I've made a wrong turn.
Yeah.
The way that they had kind of No, I mean you're not wrong because in essence it is more linear because it's easier to find your path. But they specifically were like going about it in a cool, way of instead of just making the greater rifts, just follow this course.
Right.
It's more that oh, I've missed a turn somewhere, because that's
Yeah.
what happens in Nightmare Dungeons right now. It just, you're like halfway through the dungeon when you realize, oh, there was a prisoner back there in that one little offshoot that I have to now
Yes.
run back to. They're making the maps so that way it's much easier to tell and be able to look at the tile set and be like, I know where the prisoners are at. Something that is kind of like a holdover from Diablo 2, a skill I never learned. But you could actually look at tile sets and be able to figure out
Oh
your
yeah,
way
for
through
sure.
the Flayer jungle.
Well, I don't know that one, but
Yeah, there's like the speedrunners got that, but you could go through, you could immediately load in, like just see like a couple of tiles and kind of like know where like the layout is the portal going to be the left or the right,
yeah.
type scenarios. So I that was another positive change that I actually really liked is that they made navigating the nightmare dungeons easier without making them completely linear.
Yeah.
Except for maybe the ones with no objectives where it is just straight line to the boss. And who knows?
Which I'm so excited for. We'll see how that goes. Because I mean, that creates a really cool opportunity where like, okay, now I can go just grind and kill things for XP. I could do a nightmare sigil that's way higher than me to get boosted XP gains and clear it out. I mean, yeah, I can just run straight to the boss, but in those situations, I'm gonna want to just clear like where I know the density is at, right? Hit this room, hit this room, hit this room, hit the density, and then go to the boss. So I can optimize my time better. At least, I mean, in theory, we'll see how it plays out, but I assume that's how it's gonna kind of work, and I'm really excited for that. Again, I don't think the dungeon design is bad. It's the fucking bounties that are like shoved in the middle of those dungeons that I have disliked.
I think it also just it continues to add play your way.
Yeah.
I especially it's the difficulty in the game isn't like quite there to have like doing 150s in Diablo 3 where you have
Right.
your mob clearer and you have your boss killer.
And then here's these, yeah.
Yeah, that in this one you can go through. I'm running XYZ dungeon because like I really can't handle mob packs, but I can kill a boss really quickly. So I'm just running through everything because it has no objectives in order to stop me from like getting there. I don't really have to focus on it too much, versus something that might be able to like kill mobs easier and then struggle with the boss. I know that doesn't
Right.
really exist in the game, even at the Nightmare Dungeon 100. Just because the differences between like the mob and the boss scalings and such, and the bosses being like the easiest mob in the dungeon. But at least creating that type of loop now does give the possibility of reinforcing that with changes further down the line.
Yeah.
We're we're getting long. Um, do okay, okay. We're gonna go too
We
long,
haven't
and
even,
now
we haven't even talked about mounts yet.
Or the stash space slash itemization stuff that's going to make us so much happier with how much room we have.
okay. So
Or just it auto salvaging, non-ancestral gear for you in the dungeon.
Yeah.
So I don't
which is
accidentally pick it up and get mad at myself
Yeah.
as I have a sacred. What is this sacred doing in my inventory?
Yeah.
and you're not picking up gems. Um, so okay, nine ball, you get mouse. Nerd words, you get the other thing. Um,
Okay.
you get 2 minutes to expound on how great that is, and we'll get to the end here because I'm afraid we could just keep talking, and
Yeah.
then
We definitely could.
nobody in Trinidad and Tobago is going to make it through this long of a podcast.
I know. Be terrible.
I know. So let's not do that to them. All right. Nine ball. Mount. Mount up.
So they increased the base speed, so your in-town speed has been increased by 15%. That's good. They have increased the duration of the spur, and I believe also another one of the new urns that they're adding in the season reduces the cooldown on spurring to the point where you'll basically be able to move at max speed in the open world 100% of the time. So you're getting point A to point B faster. Anyone that's played an ARPG can tell you probably one of the most significant bonuses that you can get for increasing your clear speeds is movement speed. They also are changing and reducing the cooldowns for dismounting using combat skills or getting forced dismounted by mobs. There's an argument there for people saying there shouldn't be a cooldown to begin with, but
those people don't play PvP.
Yeah, it's like it's a PvP thing. It's a world interaction thing, as well type stuff. But they're improving tracking. You can spur through barricades. It's a whole new game, a whole new horse race, as it were, when it comes to mounts. Yeah, so we're gonna be hoofing it through the world a lot faster. So there you go.
It's I think you
I concede my time back to the floor.
yeah, I think you hit on a lot of good horse puns in there as well. So I appreciate that.
I tried to shoe him in.
Jesus Christ. Oh.
Let's not look a gift horse in the mouth. Okay, Nineball. Nerd words. You guys and your end names.
I know, it's terrible. Yeah, so basically, they're not giving us a loot filter, but they kind of are through their own means. Essentially, once you hit World Tier 3, white, blue, and non-sacred yellow items in World Tier 3 will just drop as crafting materials instead of items. Won't clutter up your inventory, will go straight to your crafting tab, reduces time, and reduces clutter, which is huge. And then, same thing for World Tier 4, for non-ancestral rares, whites and blue items as well, too, which is huge. Those are very, very positive changes I'm super excited about. And honestly, just again, very similar to the other change we talked about with the town movement, right? Just less time needed in town, which is great, right? Let me go smash things more. That's the biggest problem that I had with Diablo 4 was it was feeling a little bit like Path of Exile, town simulator. So I'm glad it's not. And people are gonna crucify me for saying it felt like Path because it doesn't feel like Path at all. You know what I mean? The other part that I would say is that I think that the gems is a huge change. We've all been bitching and moaning about gems for a while, and now gems will drop as gem shards that you then take to the jeweler to craft into gems. I'm hoping it's like you craft the gem that you want out of a universal gem shard, but it might be specific gem shards. I'm not quite sure of that exactly. But we'll see how that plays out. Either way, gems will not be in your inventory until you craft them. And then let's say you've got a bunch of gems because you crafted a bunch of gems and you don't need them anymore. You can actually salvage them to make them turn back into crafting materials. So basically, gems will be a non-issue, which is huge. That paired with all the random bullshit that you pick up, those are huge changes. And then the sorting feature. We are going to be able to sort legendary aspects. And we're going to be able to sort, legendaries with those aspects on them. They did clarify both of those points, which is huge. I don't expect it to be perfect off the bat, but if you really need the smiting power and you click sort, you'll be able to put all the smiting powers together and not have to thumb through and find the damn smiting powers wherever it's at, just as an example. So that's huge. That's a huge change and win. Yeah, so really, really excited about that. I'm trying to think of what else would have affected stash space. They did say there's no announcement for more stash space now, but I'm guessing from a developer standpoint, they want to see how much this clears up the problem. And if we're still clamoring for stash space, news alert, we're Diablo players. We're always going to clamor for more stash space, but you know better than we do. Don't give us our candy, okay? We're good on stash space. People need to quit being hoarders. I say that. I play one character. I'm such a turd.
Right.
I play one character, so I don't need stat space because I'm terrible. But yeah, no, so a lot of great quality of life things that we've talked about for a long time, and they're coming. And that's really, really good. And then, of course, the whole renown thing, right? We didn't even mention the renown thing. You will not have to grind renown at all. It's done. It is done. You will start the season. You'll have all your renown unlocked, which is great. And you'll have additional waypoints unlocked. Not all of the waypoints, but additional waypoints unlocked. To be able to move around the world a little bit faster right off the jump, which is great. You'll have all of your you'll have your skill points, your potion capacities, your max obols, and paragon points earned from renown will all persist between characters, including dead hardcore characters that you had in season 1, but not preseason. Yeah, so really, really good stuff. Really good stuff.
Okay.
Oh,
So
character slots. Sorry, that's it.
there are a lot of good things, and
Archer is going to pear tree.
there it is. There are a lot of good things coming, which is great. Uh, one question I think is a nice one to end on here. Are you going to buy the battle pass for this season?
No.
I will.
Probably the $10 one.
And I will say my caveat there is I will see how it plays out. They got to win me back. I'm a little annoyed with how the first one went, but there's a possibility I could, but I'm not. I'm going to hold out as long as I can.
As I mentioned on a previous podcast, I have $80 worth of platinum that's still just sitting there, so it's like, why not?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I don't have that, so I should probably,
yeah. I was talking pre-show. I'm still not sold on the battle pass at the moment. I didn't get a lot out of the first one. I mean, I got all of the things, but it just, I don't know, it wasn't as exciting as I kind of hoped. But we'll see. And maybe when we get to play with it a little bit more, maybe I'll get hit with that FOMO and I'll drop that $10. I can definitely say with certainty I will not buy the $25 one. I mean, I feel no need for the accelerated pass at all.
The accelerated pass, and if it's just like, again, like a emote, then I don't. Not for $15.
Yeah.
I think, it's like, I got a thing for vampires. It's vampiric armor. It, looks cool enough in the splash screen. I will say, even though I'm not allowed to talk negatives anymore, I'm going to take time back. That it looks like they're going again with kind of like the role-playing RP for the free armor. We've only seen like the one thing, and so it's kind of like, meh, whatever. But, I do hope that's something that they improve.
I do also want to say, too, that there's, to anyone listening, there's a ton we did not talk about. There's just
we just can't.
Notes. Like I didn't mention the best thing of anything I mentioned is there's stash search feature. Not just the sort, but you can search now. That's huge, right? Like these are so many cool things. So again, I implore you guys to go look at the notes, read through them, really digest them. It never changes to the minions not attacking invulnerable monsters anymore. That's humongous.
I would
play Necro, and I'm happy for you guys.
I would say that if anybody is seeking this podcast out, you probably already saw those notes.
Probably so. And if not, PureDiablo.com's got a great post about it.
Yeah. So I mean, you can always go there. But I would like to imagine that anybody who's finding us is well versed. Also, I don't want the pressure of being able to deliver all that news to you guys. There's way too much. So take a look.
And I'm tired.
Yeah. Look at what you're doing to our boy Nineball. Look at how tired he is. It's been a long day. And yet he shows up for you. And
like,
the only thing we ask is your time.
Like 30 minutes into the show, I took a sleeping pill too, so.
Nice. Nine's actually robo-tripping right now.
It's in order for me to actually fall asleep, I have to. So I have to take the medication, and it's on a timer. So it takes like an hour or so in order to set in. So like it's hitting me now.
How many podcasts have you been on nighttime medicine? And just like mid conversation, like I'm done. That's it. I'm out of here.
Like, oh, there it goes. It just kicked in. Woo!
Yep. Good night.
Well, hopefully everybody else is not on a sleeping pill while they're listening. That's great. That's just good information. Good to know. And I think from here on out, just go back, watch a few episodes, and see if you can find when Nineball's about to crash. See where he's at.
This is actually the first time that I've done it because I burned myself too much staying up till midnight chatting with you fuckers. and then falling asleep at like 2 o'clock in the morning or something like that. So
Yeah.
I've got a really busy schedule and all that. I need my sleep. So
That's fair.
I'm preparing on this one.
Okay. Well, I think there is still plenty more to talk about, and I would imagine both of you will be free next week, so we can do that with the next reveal on what's happening on the 10th.
Taylor Swift's coming next week.
Oh,
Nice.
so you're gonna be busy.
You a Swifty 9 ball?
Whether I'm a Swiftie or not, she's still coming.
Right.
Yeah.
You don't get a say in the matter, but you know.
I would
I'll just
I would
shake it off.
Oh my God, y'all are fucking terrible. Jesus. No horse puns.
Yikes.
Now the Swifty
That
puns.
was
Kind
that
of
was
also horse puns. Okay, that was terrible.
oh man.
Aw.
Oh. Okay, we're devolving. And Nine Ball's pun skills are only getting better as he is getting sleepier, so this is dangerous. Um, something's happening. I would check the medication on that. But uh so we will get together next week to kind of dig into what we learn about resistances, classes, items, and then obviously kind of detail out what we plan to do in the season because we're not that far away. It is under 2 weeks until we will be delving into the seasonal blood. Which is exciting. 2 weeks at this time will be 2 days in, which is insane. So, the only thing we have to do is close it out as we always do with a moo, moo, moo.
Moo moo moo.
Woo.